This video is sponsored by Legacy's Allure. Learn more and join the alpha playtesting by checking out the description of this video. Hey there, card folk! Speedrobo here. Today we are going to be covering how certain games have taken the mechanics of others and simplified them. This isn't to say that complexity is bad. Far from it. Complexity can add depth and enjoyment in its own right. That being said, the easier a game is to understand, the more accessible it will be. This will be a good exercise, and hopefully you creators out there can use what we talk about today to help make your own game mechanics easier to follow. Kicking off, let's take a look at Magic the Gathering. As I covered in an earlier episode, Magic has a lot of barriers for new players. Legends of Runeterra takes most of Magic's same mechanics and makes them a lot easier to grasp by simplifying them without losing much, if any, depth. To start, the mana system. Both games use a turn counter mana system. Magic uses dedicated cards that go in the main deck for its mana, adding a whole card type and extra card effects into the mix. Legends of Runeterra really does just use a turn counter, without the need for extra cards. While this does cut out a bit of depth by removing the potential for card effects printed on the land, it makes up for it with its mana stockpiling system. This system allows players to save up to 3 points of mana to cast spells with on following turns. Pretty dang neat, and does a great job of simplifying the game by removing a whole extraneous card type. Magic's stack and effect reaction system can be very daunting to new players. There's very little turn structure in Magic, as most abilities can be used at any time, in any order, by any player. Legends of Runeterra keeps the high level of player interaction, but adds easy to understand structure to the mix so that players don't get lost. Every time a player plays a card, the non-turn player gets a chance to play one too. This goes back and forth for the entire turn until both players pass or run out of mana. The only difference between the turn player and non-turn player is who gets to attack and who must defend. Great way to make high interaction gameplay easy to follow for players of all skill levels. I would be very interested to see both spell mana and Runeterra's turn structure implemented in a physical game. Next, I want to talk about something that's not really a card game, but a perfect candidate for today's discussion. Warhammer. When it comes to miniatures games, Warhammer is at the top of the pack. Like most minis games, the rulebook is an absolute unit. Lord knows I don't have time to dive into it all here, so I'm going to show off a miniatures game that manages to trim all the fat from the genre, Legacy's Allure. The first thing you'll notice about Legacy's Allure is that despite following all the convention of a minis game, it doesn't actually use miniatures. This removes a game piece that's honestly pretty unneeded. Most minis games require the use of cards to keep track of the stats anyway, so why not just use those? The next big way Legacy's Allure streamlines its genre conventions is with its setup method. Before battle begins, both players take turns picking and placing their units in close proximity to each other. Therefore, when the game begins proper, players are thrust straight into the action. This is in stark contrast to most other minis games, where players' pieces are placed very far away from each other, and several turns are used to maneuver those pieces in range to begin combat. Legacy's Allure found a way to condense that whole process into less than an hour. Personally, I'm a big fan of that. And finally, movement. In most miniatures games, movement is done by using inches or centimeters with a ruler or tape measure. This method is undeniably slow and clunky. In addition, players tend to move all of their units during their turn. Then the game passes it over to the opponent to do the same. This results in a lot of downtime for the non-turn player. Legacy's Allure keeps that action up with a more chess-like system. Movement is done on a hex grid, with each player moving one piece during their turn, before it passes over to the opponent to also move one piece. This system keeps players a lot more engaged by making sure that their turn will always be happening sooner rather than later. If you're interested in trying out Legacy's Allure on Tabletop Simulator, then join the Discord server. I've been playing it for a while now, and I honestly enjoy it. I wouldn't have taken on this sponsorship if I didn't. While complexity can be good, designers need to understand when and how to trim the fat to make a more accessible, snappy experience. I hope that today's videos and examples will help you do the same for your games. I've been Speedrobo, and I'll see you later.